Brother I, upload everything that we know about Captain Cold. Hey guys, welcome to another entry in the Ability Almanac series. This is the 9th entry. I'm quickly turning into a goddamn Final Fantasy thing. Today, we will be looking at Captain Cold, and by extension Mr. Freeze's, abilities in Injustice 2. Some of them are pretty damn creative. I gotta give NetherRealm props for these. So, without further ado, let's jump on in. Captain Cold specializes in keeping at long range and managing his trait, so that when he gets you in the corner, mixes for days. This is actually how Sonic Fox managed to win a major with Captain Cold, someone who is considered low tier. This is why, while tiers are somewhat important, it's more about the player than anything else. This is Shoulder of Cold, a rushing shoulder attack that has great pushback and knocks opponents into the corner just where people want. Where Captain Cold wants, rather. He also has an air dash. It doesn't damage the opponent despite what you might be led to believe, but it is a pretty decent way to get over the opponent for a free cross-up. Sort of. It's a little bit slow on the reaction, but you can get cross-ups if you time everything properly. But it is, again, worth noting that despite the appearance, you're not actually damaging the opponent. So that kind of sucks, but hey, what are you going to do about it, right? Now it's time to move on to Mr. Freeze. This loadout is dedicated specifically to the Mr. Freeze Premier skin, and as a result, I kind of tried to customize it with something that felt more like Mr. Freeze, and that he's a scientist and he's clever, so he knows a thing or two. For instance, take the Death Sickle. This is a normal move where he creates an icicle and drops he drops icicles on people's heads. But he also has this. This is Freezing Rain. Instead of dropping a giant block to obstruct opponents and create a wall for you to allow you to start moving on trait, it creates an overhead freeze that, well, freezes the opponent for enough period of time in order to get things going. He can also form platforms. Sorry, I don't know why I was stumbling there. This is Air Ice Bridge. This is the same input as the wall, but on the ground, but in the air rather. He can do this twice in the air before he has to come back down. And since opponents have to be on the ground in a certain period of time, no matter how low to the ground you are, when you jump again, you'll fall back down in the same time, even if you're 20 feet in the air. You can also cancel it, though I did forget to show it, by tapping down to just fall straight down. And you can also use any standing special moves or strings while on the ice bridge, including the wall, your cold shot, and even standing too. It's very interesting. And you can also combine it with Death Sickle in order to rain hell from above. One other thing is that off of certain jumping interactables, like the tree in the Arkham Asylum front yard, you can also perform the ice bridge off of that. I forgot to show it there as well, but this is pretty neat. Next up, we have Ice Burst, a short-range blast of cold energy that does almost double the damage of a cold shot. It does 12 base damage as opposed to 7, but it's a high, and as you can see, it's very short range. I also equipped the Upward Ice Burst, which is a separate gear move. So you can have the Straight Blast, where it's the straight blast of cold, and then you have the Upward Ice Burst for a quick anti-air that does pretty decent damage. The next loadout is going to freeze you to the core. Captain Cold, like Blue Beetle, has no 2-slot abilities, but he does have an alternate back trait, which is Cold Stream. Instead of cloaking himself in ice spikes, it costs about half of his trait to freeze the opponent in place, and does a little bit of damage over time before they freeze. But as you can see, it takes a while, but you can keep on firing for as long as you have trait and the opponent is not close to you before you run out, or until you freeze the opponent, whatever happens first. And if you're wondering, you cannot freeze multiple times with this. You can only freeze once, and then you're good to go. But what's interesting to note is that there's enough time for you to freeze the opponent, then do it again to freeze them a second time. They, as far as I know, cannot block this, but I did not test it on a blocking opponent, unfortunately. Feel free to correct me if I am wrong. I really would like to know if I'm wrong here. I just don't have time to elaborate right now because after this, I'm going straight to bed. Time to move on to the next chilly loadout. Well, the final one. And then frame data. Yay! And the final set of gear abilities is Upward Cold Blast and Air Cold Blast. This allows you to fire a projectile, or I think this also allows you to fire an aerial version of the Cold Burst, the one that does more damage, depending on which ground version you have activated. This is pretty basic. You fire your Cold Blast in the air, or you fire your Cold Blast upwards. But you'll notice on Meter Burn, it fires a straight big shot, as opposed to another upward shot. Kind of like Cyborg. It's a little bit weird, but it's something that I did notice. Now, comes to everybody's favorite part, after I mess around with this a little bit to get some combo potential, because why not? Next up, frame data for every single ability in the game. Well, for Captain Cold anyway. I hope you enjoyed this video. With Black Manta coming out, I should probably preface this right now. I will not be doing Black Manta when he comes out. I will be saving Black Manta until I've done every other character in advance, and then move on to characters that I would have skipped over. I did air quotes there. So Black Manta will be skipped, but Raiden will not be, nor will Hellboy, because they are ahead of the schedule. I mean, Hellboy has a chance of being skipped depending on, like, if he's coming out in October or November and how many characters I do in that process, but there's a reasonable chance to assume that I will probably be doing Hellboy before I do Black Manta. It's just so that I could get through all the characters and then come back and do the rest of those characters later on that I might have missed. Mainly because I don't know who is coming up after this. Sorry for my rambling. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I should probably just quickly say DFTBA and go to bed. But there is one more thing that I personally just really hope that there's an update that finally gives us Starfire's abilities. Starfire doesn't have just 2 abilities, and I know this for a fact because we saw more of them in the trailer. So I'm just hoping that we get the ability to unlock more abilities soon with Starfire, and that it's just a temporary glitch and that nothing bad has happened. Otherwise, we may be in trouble for this Ability Almanac series. DFTBK.